Coming up on Sportsource, from winless to winners, a father-daughter duo is turning heads and racking up victories at Athens Christian High School. We'll introduce you to the dynamic duo. And what drives UGA star Micah Morris? We go beyond the gridiron to uncover the roots of his football passion. Plus, transfer shocker, Carson Beck's decision to leave UGA has Bulldog Nation buzzing. We break down the fallout and what it means for the upcoming season. Sportsource starts now. Welcome to Sportsource. I'm your host, Poppy Marquez. We begin our show today with an inspiring story out of Athens Christian High School, where a determined young athlete and her father have transformed a struggling basketball program. What was once a team battling through winless seasons is now a true contender, proving that hard work and leadership can change everything. Sportsource reporter Keisha Chestnut joins us now with more on their incredible journey.
Thanks, Poppy. At Athens Christian, junior point guard Josie Vaughn is making waves on the basketball court, leading her team to a standout season. But what makes her journey even more special is who's been guiding her every step of the way: her father and head coach, Coach Vaughn. At Athens Christian, the women's basketball team is having a standout season, holding a 16-3 record and ranking among Georgia's top 30 teams. But amidst the team's success, one player is chasing history. Junior point guard Josie Vaughn is on track to becoming the school's all-time leading scorer. Just before the holidays, Josie accomplished 1,000 career points in her school's basketball program. But for her, the journey isn't over yet. She says while proud of her accomplishments, there's still more to do.
I still want to work hard and just do the best I can because it's not over until I graduate. So I'm just looking forward to see what else I can do.
Josie's journey is even more special because she gets to experience it alongside her father, Jeff Vaughn, not only as a proud parent, but as her coach, guiding her every step of the way.
In the court, I try not to look at him as a father figure. Like when he's criticizing me, I can't say, oh, my dad's being mean. I just have to say he's a coach and he's trying to push me. And then right when we step out of the court, that's when he goes from coach to dad, and then we can just joke around.
Coach Vaughn admits that the hardest part is knowing when to be a coach and when to just be her dad.
There's times that I have to get in her ear and fuss her out, and then there's times I have to tell her it's okay and I love you.
Coach Vaughn says he couldn't be more prouder of Josie, but he knows this moment isn't just about talent. It's about the countless hours of hard work she puts in to get here.
I'm happy for her, but that's her reward for all the work she's done.
Josie has her sights set on the future, dreaming of a day she could take her game to the collegiate level.
It's always been a dream of mine. I've always wanted to play Division I, but wherever God takes me, that's where I'll end up.
With the support of her family, the father-daughter duo brings a balance on and off the court, making the journey rewarding. For the Carmichael Sports Media Institute, I'm Keisha Chestnut. With the season winding down, Athens Christian holds an impressive 16-3 record. And with a year and a half left in her high school career, Josie Vaughn is determined to leave a lasting impact on the program. As she inches closer to making history, we'll be following her journey every step of the way. Back to you, Poppy.
Like Keisha said, Athens Christian is hoping to make history. And speaking of making history, the Georgia Bulldogs are looking to break a long losing streak against a familiar foe. It's time for the game of the week, and this one is a classic SEC rivalry, Georgia versus Florida.
The Bulldogs are looking to bounce back after a tough loss to Arkansas, but standing in their way is the number 5 ranked Gators, a team that has dominated this matchup for over a decade.
Can Georgia finally break the streak and get a much-needed SEC road win? We'll take a look after the break.
Welcome back to Sports Source. It's time to discuss the game of the week. This week's game is a deep-rooted rivalry between Georgia and Florida's men's basketball teams. Georgia's coming off of a big upset loss versus Arkansas, where they blew a 15-point lead in the second half. And if they want to win this matchup versus the number 5 ranked Gators, they have to make a lot of adjustments. To break it all down with me, I'm joined by SportsSource analysts Colin Miller and Nigel Whittington. So guys, let's get into it.
Thanks, Poppy. Right now, Georgia sits 11th in the SEC with a 14-5 overall record and a 2-4 record in conference play. They've had some big wins this month, taking down number 9 Kentucky and Oklahoma, but they're still looking for that first SEC road victory to get things rolling. After the loss on Wednesday, Coach Mike White spoke about the team's mentality heading into Saturday.
We got to move on. I mean, it's you sit here and pout about a loss in this league. It's just you're not preparing yourself. You're not giving yourself a chance in the next one. So we got to move on pretty quickly.
That first SEC road win won't come easy as the Dogs are facing a tough test against the Florida Gators. Florida sits near the top of the conference, currently third in the SEC with a 4-2 conference record and a 17-2 overall record, making them one of the stronger teams in the league. Earlier this month, they put on a dominant performance against number 6 Tennessee, showing just how dangerous they can be, a challenge Georgia will have to be ready for.
You're right, Nigel. Georgia has to be ready for this challenge if they want to have a chance at this game. Florida has dominated this matchup lately, winning the last 11 meetings between the two teams. However, one thing to note is that the last 3 matchups between the two teams have been within 6 points. That is to say that the Bulldogs are completely capable of beating the Gators. In their last meeting at Florida, Georgia was so close, but they lost 98-102 in overtime. Colin, what went wrong in that matchup with the Bulldogs at Florida?
Well, Poppy, I think one of the biggest issues for Georgia in that game was their lack of depth and defensive struggles, especially in the closing moments. RJ Melendez was incredible, dropping 34 points to keep them in it. But once Florida adjusted and started double teaming him, the Bulldogs just didn't have an answer. The offense got hesitant and no one else really stepped up to take control. But this year, Georgia has made that adjustment. Their roster has more talent across the board, and Mike White has really emphasized defense, something that wasn't a strong suit last season. Against a high-powered offense like Florida, they can't afford to sit back. They have to stay aggressive and take the fight to the Gators.
Nigel, how do you think Georgia's defense stacks up against Florida's explosive offense?
Well, like Colin said, Florida has been an offensive machine this season, averaging 85.1 points per game, which is 4th in the SEC. Meanwhile, Georgia has been solid on the defensive end, holding teams to just 65.7 points per game. But if there's one concern for the Bulldogs in this matchup, it's their tendency to rack up fouls. They have to stay aggressive on defense without constantly sending Florida to the free throw line. That brings us to a key factor in this game: rebounding. Last season, Georgia was ranked 104th for offensive rebounding percentage, and this year, they've skyrocketed to 13th. That's a massive improvement, and it means they're creating extra scoring opportunities. If they can control the boards, it could make a huge difference in this one.
I agree, Nigel, that Georgia's rebounding has filled a big void from last season. But is that enough to stop such an offensive powerhouse like Florida?
I think that if the Bulldogs play in the paint the way they are supposed to on offense and defense, boxing out, grabbing rebounds, not fouling, and going up strong to the basket on offense, the Bulldogs can win. But the rebounds are paramount. The Bulldogs need to minimize second chance points from Florida as much as possible, and they do that by not getting intimidated by Florida's presence in the paint. This goes defensively and offensively as well. Florida has been a beast on the boards, top 5 in the nation with 846 total rebounds, and they average 44.5 a game. They've also grabbed 557 defensive rebounds, so for Georgia, finishing at the rim is going to be crucial. They can't afford to waste opportunities inside.
Nigel, you touched on rebounding. Colin, what are the rebound matchups we should be looking out for on Saturday?
The matchup between Georgia's Asa Newell and Florida's Alex Condon is going to be a fun one to watch. Both guys lead their teams in rebounding, but they bring a lot more to the table. Newell, a 5-star freshman, has been a key scorer for Georgia, while Condon has been a defensive force for Florida, leading the team in blocks. With rebounding being such a big factor in this game, this battle in the paint could end up making the difference.
I'm definitely watching Florida's Walter Clayton Jr. because if Georgia wants a shot at winning, they've got to find a way to slow him down. The 6'3" senior has been on a tear, draining 53 threes and ranking 6th in the SEC with 338 points. He's a huge threat on the perimeter, and if the Bulldogs can't contain him, it's going to be tough to snap their losing streak against the Gators.
That's right, Georgia hasn't beaten Florida since 2019, so this game already means a lot, but it's even bigger for Bulldogs head coach Mike White, who spent 7 seasons leading the Gators before making the move to Athens. You know he's going to have a little extra fire going up against his former team on Saturday. For Georgia, this is a big opportunity to get some momentum in SEC play. But for White, it's also a chance to prove that coming to Georgia was the right move. Do I think he could do it? Absolutely. He's made a career out of taking struggling programs and turning them around, and he's on the verge of doing it again. Georgia wasn't making much noise in the SEC before he got there, but that's starting to change. That being said, while I think Georgia will keep this one close, Florida's offensive talent might just be too much for the Bulldogs to handle on the road. I'm taking the Gators to win it 75-65.
Interesting take, Colin. Nigel, what are your predictions?
The Dogs are going to need a near-perfect performance, whereas the Gators just need to continue their dominance on the court. I see Florida's home court advantage helping them cruise past Georgia 88-62. Back to you, Poppy.
Well, thanks, guys. Still ahead on Sportsource, UGA's Micah Morris shares a side that you've never seen before. From his childhood dreams to his unforgettable Sugar Bowl experience, this is a story you won't want to miss. And later, Carson Beck is heading to South Beach in Miami. But what do UGA fans think about their former quarterback's surprise transfer? We hit the streets to get their take next on Sportsource. Welcome back to Sportsource. He's a force to be reckoned with on the football field, but today we're getting to know UGA's Micah Morris, also known as Big Mike, off the field. Sportsource reporter Avery Cameron joins us now to take us beyond the highlights. Avery?
Thanks, Poppy. UGA football fans know Micah Morris for his skills on the field, but today we're taking a closer look at what first sparked his love for the game. Plus, he shares his thoughts on some of the most unforgettable moments of this year's Sugar Bowl. Check it out. All right, well, thanks for joining me, Big Mike. First of all, just tell me a little bit about how you got started into football.
Well, for me, it started whenever I was like 5 years old. Flag football, actually. I used to be quarterback, believe it or not. It's a long time ago. Flag football was the first time I started playing, but my mom's from Pittsburgh. So originally, I grew up a Steelers fan, so I always grew up around football. My cousins played it, my parents, my dad played it, my uncles played it. It was always part of my family. But I got into it myself when I was 5 or 6 at a young age.
So when did you move from Pittsburgh to Georgia?
Well, it's really just my mom. I grew up in Camden County. I was born and raised where my dad's from, but my mom came from Pittsburgh down to Georgia, and that's how my parents met. So I grew up in Georgia.
Awesome. And then is that why you decided to go to Georgia?
This might be a little controversial, but I actually grew up an Alabama fan.
Wow.
But it was because of Kirby Smart's defense, so I guess that's a little better back when he was the defensive coordinator there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I grew up a Bama fan, but during the recruiting process and visiting all the schools, I feel like UGA was the best place for me.
Yeah. When did you make the switch from, a quarterback at 5 years old to being a defensive player?
I started playing line whenever I was in middle school. Up until then, I was literally just a tight end. Then I started taking like lineman serious around middle school. Then high school, that's whenever I got really big and gained a bunch of weight and got tall finally. So then I transitioned from tight end, offensive line. Then from offensive line, from guard to tackle, then tackle back to guard, and just flip-flop back and forth.
Everywhere,
so, yeah.
all over the field.
Right.
All right, so let's switch to this past season. Unfortunately, it ended too short before any of us wanted it to.
Right.
What was your initial reaction, and what was going through your head when you heard about the terrorist attack in New Orleans?
Well, the thing is, we were just prepared to play the game, and we didn't really know too much about it because everything we do is like on schedule, on time, on the hour, stuff like that. Then we heard about it, we were that's sad and unfortunate. It's crazy because it was literally maybe a 10-minute walk from us, if that.
Mm-hmm.
So we were just happy that, all of us, none of us were out or anything like that because we had curfew, obviously, and then just found the people that lost their lives tragically. It was hard,
right?
Very hard, and it was just it was a rough situation. Honestly, the whole ordeal was really bad.
Yeah. So how do you think that unfortunate event, how do you think that affected your mental state and emotional state kind of going into that Sugar Bowl game?
I feel like everybody, both sides, their hearts were heavy. Obviously, we had to reset mentally from getting ready to play that day to being able to mourn and be thankful for what we have that day, even more than we usually do, just because you never know when it could be over. Then just having to reset as a team from being able to play one day, then having to go through another pregame ritual, just everything, just pretty much a huge reset, literally hours before the game.
Yeah. Do you think that reset kind of influenced the outcome of the game, or were y'all just ready to play still?
I feel like the team as all, we've been through a lot. We've worked out through different situations, so I wouldn't say that necessarily changed us at all.
Sure. Okay, so let's end on a little more positive topic. National championship tonight. Who you got?
I have Ohio State.
You do?
Yes. It's gonna be hard for them to cover Jeremiah Smith.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today.
No problem. Thank you.
It's always inspiring to hear what fuels the passion behind the players we cheer for. Micah's perspective on the game and his reflections on the tragic events in New Orleans adds so much depth to the story we all know. Back to you, Poppy.
Great interview, Avery. Football may be over, but it's almost time for baseball season. This year, the Dogs have something to prove.
Ranked number 8 in the nation, UGA baseball is ready to make a statement.
Sportsource takes you inside the Dogs' quest for a championship season. After the break, don't go away.
Welcome back to Sportsource. Get ready, Bulldog fans. We are sliding headfirst into the exciting world of UGA baseball. With opening day just around the corner, this team is primed for a big season. Sportsource analysts Paige Collins and Cooper Wow are here to break it all down for us.
Poppy, UGA baseball is just 3 weeks away from opening day, and the excitement is building. The Bulldogs start the season ranked number 8 in the D1 preseason poll, standing strong among the 6 SEC teams in the top 10.
Georgia comes in as the 5th highest ranked SEC team, a testament to just how stacked this conference is. The SEC has owned college baseball, winning every College World Series since 2019. In fact, in 3 of the last 5 seasons, only SEC teams have played in the championship game. Last season, the Bulldogs fought their way to the Super Regionals, where they took NC State to a decisive Game 3 before bowing out. With the talent they're bringing back, this year's squad is looking to take it even further.
You're right, Colin. That's a strong start for Georgia, especially when you look at their previous seasons. Under new head coach Wes Johnson, the Bulldogs have turned things around vastly in a single season. But let's take a closer look at where they stand in the SEC and what's ahead of their schedule. Analysts, give us some context about where Georgia stands in the conference and their preseason trajectory over the years. Let's start with you, Paige.
Georgia had a strong run last season, finishing 3rd in the conference with a 17-13 record, a pretty big deal considering they weren't even ranked in the preseason top 25. If you look back over the past 5 years, the Bulldogs were ranked number 16 in 2022 and number 13 in 2020, but didn't make the preseason poll in 2021, 2023, or 2024. But now they're starting at number 8, and there's a real sense that this could be the year they do something special.
Dog fans, mark your calendars. There are some big matchups to watch for this season. Georgia has a huge home series against Kentucky, followed by a tough road test at Florida to open SEC play. Last year, the Bulldogs had a rough time against both squads, getting swept by Kentucky in Lexington and going 1-2 against Florida at home. So they'll be looking for some payback. One game that always stands out is a showdown with in-state rival Georgia Tech. The Bulldogs owned that matchup last season, sweeping in all 3 games, including a clutch playoff win to reach the Super Regionals. Another interesting early season challenge, a 2-game road trip to UNC Wilmington, a team Georgia knocked out in the playoffs last year. It'll be a good litmus test to see where the Dogs stand early on.
One of the early matchups for the Bulldogs, as Cooper mentioned, is versus UNC Wilmington. Paige, give us a rundown of how that series played out last season.
The last time Georgia and UNC Wilmington faced off in 2024, the Bulldogs left no doubt about who was in control, cruising to an 11-2 win in the NCAA Athens Regional. Colby Branch set the tone early, launching a grand slam in the 2nd inning to give Georgia a 5-1 lead. Slate Alford, another key returner for the Bulldogs, kept the offense rolling with 3 hits, helping extend the lead to 11-2 by the final inning. On the mound, redshirt junior DJ Radke, who's back this season, picked up his first career win, allowing just 1 hit while striking out 3 2 solid innings of relief. UNCW fought to keep it close early, pushing to tie the game in the 2nd, but they could not match Georgia's firepower. With big names like Branch and Alford returning for UGA and Brock Willis back for UNCW, this rematch is shaping up to be a must-watch. And after last year's loss ended their season, you can bet the Seahawks are coming in with a little extra motivation.
Georgia enters the season with a number 8 preseason ranking, their highest in the last decade and only the 4th time they've cracked the top 10 in that span. Preseason rankings don't always tell the whole story, but we won't have to wait long to see if the Bulldogs can live up to the hype. Starting at number 8 is a great starting point, but the real challenge will be replacing Condon's production. If they can figure that out, they have a real shot at climbing higher and becoming a national championship contender. For me, the biggest test will come at the beginning and end of their conference schedule. Their matchups against Florida and Texas A&M, plus a single game at Clemson, are the ones I've got circled. Those will be key in determining just how far this team can go.
Georgia's preseason rankings show just how much potential this team has, but there's no denying that losing Charlie Condon is a big challenge. Cooper, tell us, who do you think are the new faces who could step up and help the Bulldogs on track this season?
Absolutely. The Dogs are going to need big seasons out of 4 new players. FAU transfer Christian Adams had a great season at the plate last year, and he'll need another one just like it to help replace Condon's production. Another big bat that will need to be activated is that of Ryland Zaborowski, a Miami, Ohio transfer who excels in hitting the deep ball. The last transfer to look out for is Air Force transfer Charlie Jones, originally from Cumming, Georgia, not too far down the road. Jones might not start, but adds all-important defensive depth and is sneaky fast, so look out for him to pinch run and steal some bases. The last player to look out for on this new-look Bulldogs roster is a highly anticipated recruit, Bryce Clavon. Clavon is a multi-sport demon that will be an immediate boost to the Bulldogs roster, a 2023 All-American Classic player and a top 5 recruit in the state. Clavon will be an offensive boost and a versatile fielder with the ability to play second base, shortstop, and outfield.
I'm with you, Cooper. The Dogs are definitely on the rise this season, but we have to talk about the big question mark, replacing Charlie Condon. Losing a player of his caliber is a huge challenge, but Georgia's coaching staff has done a great job bringing in some key transfers who can help fill in that gap. Adams, in particular, had a standout year at FAU, leading the team with a batting average of .343, 71 hits, 108 total bases, and .987 OPS. He also started all 57 games at second base, proving he's not just consistent at the plate, but reliable in the field too. Of course, filling Condon's shoes won't be easy. Last season, he put up jaw-dropping numbers, a .410 batting average, 30 doubles, 2 triples, 62 home runs, 145 RBIs, and 90 walks over 116 games. Those are once-in-a-generation stats. We can make predictions about who might step up, but at the end of the day, it'll come down to who delivers when it matters most.
No doubt, Paige. Condon's departure is a big loss, but I don't think Georgia's looking for just one guy to replace him. It's going to be a team effort. If these new additions can blend in with the returning players, the Bulldogs could actually be a much more balanced team overall. I'm really curious to see how the newcomers fit into the lineup. They all bring different skills, and if they can click early, Georgia might not miss a beat offensively. The pieces are there. It's just a matter of putting it all together. This season could be something special.
The one player who won't be hitting the field in Athens is Carson Beck. Carson Beck traded Athens for South Beach. Is it the sunshine, the nightlife, or is it something else that has Beck heading to Miami? We investigate the real reasons behind the transfer next. On Sportsource, don't go away. Welcome back to Sportsource. Carson Beck has left Athens and transferred to Miami. And does anybody really care? Sportsource reporter Lainey Martin took to the streets to find out. Take it away, Lainey.
Thanks, Poppy. Former Georgia quarterback Carson Beck sent shockwaves through Bulldog Nation on January 10th when he announced via Instagram, of course, that he's transferring to the University of Miami. The 2-year starter had fans scratching their head, especially since he had originally declared for the 2025 NFL Draft. Talk about a change of plans. Curious to see how students on campus are taking the news, I went out to hear their thoughts on Beck's decision and what it can mean for the upcoming season. Let's just say there were plenty of opinions.
How do you feel about Carson Beck transferring, and how do you think that will impact Georgia football in the future?
I say good riddance. Ride the Gunner train. Love Gunner.
I think it'll be a win for everybody. I think Carson will make more money going to Miami, which is good for him because he's not going to make a lot of money in the NFL after that last season. They're not really going to want him. And then I think it's good for us because I think the players would prefer to play for Gunner. You hear Ratledge talk a lot about how Gunner's in the film room past closing times. Everybody else is gone. Coaches are gone, and Gunner's still there working. I think they just like to play for him a lot more.
But he wasn't going to do very well in the NFL, so he might as well get that NIL money now.
Sad because they paid him a lot more money than we're paying him now, but I feel like he won't really do as well at Miami because
probably for the best. He wasn't gonna really get the starting job. He wasn't gonna be guaranteed.
Good riddance. I think Gunner Stockton is gonna be a good quarterback next year, and I'm excited to see what's gonna happen.
He's tough because of course he's your number one and he's a great quarterback, but I think we're safe with Gunner.
I think by Carson leaving, it gives Gunner the chance to really come up to the plate and really reach his full potential next year. I'm excited to see what he's going to do for the team.
I liked Carson, but I think it's interesting. He's getting paid so much money to go to Miami.
I think it took everybody by surprise, even someone who's not really into the sports world. I do think Gunner Stockton has the ability to step up. It seemed like in the SEC championship.
I think Carson Beck transferring is, in terms of Georgia football, is not that big of a deal. I think Gunner Stockton's going to be fine.
I don't think it's going to impact us at all because I like Gunner a lot, and I think whoever we bring in would also be great. But in terms of transferring to Miami, I think I'd probably take that much money too. So.
Students had a lot to say about Beck's departure, and let's just say it's a mixed bag. Some are on board with his decision while others aren't too thrilled. But if there's one thing Georgia fans know, it's that the team knows how to adjust. With Beck moving on, many are confident that Gunnar Stockton is ready to take the reins and keep the Dogs rolling. The season ahead should be interesting. Back to you, Poppy.
Thanks, Lainey. Carson Beck's departure definitely shakes things up. But one thing's for sure, the Dogs will be back, and so will we. That's a wrap on our first episode of the season. Tune in next week for a new episode of Sportsource. And from the entire Sportsource team, have a great week. We'll see you back here next time.